succinct and
Yes,
clear.
it's
It's
a
a high
It's a
compliment.
There you go.
I'm with you. So just quick overview. So when most people talk about teaching comprehension, they're talking about strategy instruction. You know, you look on the internet, it's all these are the 7 strategies you teach. But there's a piece missing. It's it goes before that, because the research says that there's quite a bit of comprehension is automatic. Like if I say to you, if I ask you to read the first sentence on the 4th paragraph. Okay, just read that just quickly in your brain. You stopped halfway across, right? You got that, haven't you? Okay. So because of our experience with language, and we've learned to read, and you know, our brain works that out. But how does it do it? How does it actually do that? All right. And so Scarborough's rope talks about, you know, there are 5 strands. Like, so when you're reading, he stopped halfway across. No, that's not a very good one.
Halfway across he paused.
Okay. There's something a little bit.
Meteor.
Let me just grab something from the actual training webinar, which will make it much easier for me.
I was trying to figure out what to say, but it doesn't make no say.
Okay, so you will see that. So I'm saying that there's a skill, there's a comprehension skill that we naturally acquire, and kids sort of arrive at. They've got it as a result of learning to decode, but it's in many cases it's not very well developed, not very well advanced. And what they tend to do is there's just this idea of an idea grab. They'll read it and they'll just grab something and move on to the next, but they don't really process all the information. So what I'm saying is that stage 3 is all about drawing their attention to the fact that when you're reading properly, you've actually got to slow down and okay, the skill is simultaneously being able to extract the ideas that are in the sentence and then being able to put them together, right, to construct meaning, so that you arrive at the idea that the author has intended. Now what will tend to happen is the reader just skates over the sentence, grabs something that catches their attention and moves on. So you end up with a bit here, a bit there, a bit there, and a very, very superficial, what they call situation model of what's actually going on. Right, so this is, so let's have a go at a sentence. So Jean, here's an idea. It's the first idea in the sentence. Jean, what do you get from that?
Person.
Yeah, person in the story or in the sentence. Okay. Possibly a woman, from your experience, do you think? Maybe not. Okay.
Experience, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Okay, so that's the first idea. It's a subject of the sentence. But would like to visit. What do you got?
They contemplate.
Something she's
Going
thinking about.
somewhere.
He's thinking about
Desire that she's got. Something that would be cool. And what is it that she wants to do? What's a visit? Yeah, can you give me a bit more? Visit? What's a visit?
staying somewhere for a period of time,
I've come to visit you, but I'm not staying, am I? No. So,
for a small period of time.
okay, that sort of visit is distinct from I'm going to go and live there, right? Who was it? The small town.
She's going to go stay at a small town from the very point
What's
where she wants
what's a
to.
small town?
Not a city, but a
Country in the country,
not a.
an island, smaller than where I live.
10,000,
I guess you
2,000.
gave
Okay,
off
so you-
your
I'm hoping there's going to be more
what you know.
information.
Yeah, there's going to be more information, but you're weighing that up. Is it sort of like Ashburton, or is it Timaru, or no, you know how big those
So
are.
the kids will go, well, I live in Auckland, so a small town might be.
Hamilton.
It depends if they know what a,
Yeah,
what a
okay.
town is, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
something there that says the small town.
So,
What's
because the small town's got a name.
A specific place.
it's not just, I'd like to go and visit a small town.
The small town of.
Right, okay.
A small town in the countryside.
You got a better idea what it might look like? What?
There's grass and greenery around it.
Have to travel some distance.
Main Street, a few shops, a few houses, right, paddocks. That's what I'm sort of thinking. Now,
She was born in a small town.
right. So there you see you're having to extract these ideas. The ideas are all quite sort of separate, but because they've been put together in the sentence, they are all joined together if it's been written well, right? And there's a meaning, a specific meaning that's to be extracted from it. Okay, now, and we can put that one up there. So there's some more examples that I'll work through.
I mean, that connects with the writer's toolbox.
Yeah.
Training.
Yes,
Yeah,
it does,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's really wrong.
so I'll just show you this idea of the idea grab. What happens to our kids? You know, we make all these assumptions that because they can read the text, they actually understand it. So this was. Did I show you this? No. Okay. So this is a school that I went to before I started. I went in and I grabbed some kids, and just did some pre-testing with them. So this little guy here. Right, Cooper. So I gave him a paragraph to read. He read it silently, and then I got him to read out the sentence aloud, and then I want you to tell me what's going on in that sentence. Okay. So now if you look at that sentence, you've got this idea of a king and queen. So you've got to be able to identify what a king and queen is, and the impact that they were Penelope's parents, which makes her a princess, and they had a plan.
Oh, you're in gym.
Oh.
Do you want to stay and I will run this duty for you because you're part of this team.
Sorry, Stephen.
Sorry, just
Where are you? Here
just
we are.
mentioning this.
Thank you. So they had a plan. You know, it wasn't just going to be a haphazard way of bringing her up. They had a certain plan. They wanted to be a typical, whatever that means, fairy tale princess. Okay, so this is what he came up with.
I think it means like Penelope gets more well treated.
Okay, so that's his grab. From all of that, that's what's stuck in his brain as he processes it. Now this is 5 months later, after 5 months of unpacking sentences and instruction. This is what he came up with, same sentence, right? And I just want you to look at his face. I mean, he's much more engaged. He's enjoying this a lot more than he was. But here we go. And it's not perfect, but just note the difference between what he was doing before.
I think that means that Penelope is like a princess. Her parents, the king and the queen who ruled the land, bring up Penelope, the princess, to be a typical, well-known fairy tale, story made up princess.
So he's struggling with some of those concepts. They're not perfect, and it's a little bit clunky, but he's attending to all the bits of information, not just, grabbing something. So, next sentence, as all true princesses do, that's quite a hard concept. What is a true princess? She had to sleep on a huge bed with a very soft mattress.
I think it means she is getting bigger.
That's all he's done. He's getting bigger. Okay?
I think that means as all true, made up, real
Struggling with that concept.
princesses do. She had to sleep, she was forced to sleep on a huge, gigantic bed, with very with a very soft mattress with maybe no springs and just fluff.
Okay, just one more. So her wardrobe was stacked with beautiful princess dresses. Something different for every important princess occasion.
Like, I think it's for birthdays or something like that.
Right. So just grabbing at an idea. And
Her wardrobe, like the thing that holds all her clothes, was stacked to the brim, like stacked dress over dress, with beautiful princess, flowing princess dresses. Something different, not the same, and a princess occasion, like tea parties, going out for dinner.
okay, so you see the difference? So by forcing the student to actually slow down and do this, identify the ideas and see how they're connected. As his Scarborough's 5 strands coming in, you're having to pull on the world knowledge that you have about what's a true princess, what is a fairy tale princess, vocabulary, the words that you know, you're extracting them from your long-term memory, and then your knowledge of sentence structure and how that works, and then the verbal reasoning is the putting together, being able to understand the intention of the little inferences that are there, all the inferencing that's involved, and so you're just forcing them to slow down. And the requirement is you've got to convince me that you know what's going on in that sentence. So if I just say, here's a sentence: the duck landed on the water, and you say, the duck landed on the water. Okay, you may know what it means for a duck to land on the water, but you've done nothing to convince me. So that becomes the challenge in the classroom. For this 30-minute period a week, we're going to work through text in a much more excruciating way, and we go, you've got to show me that you know what's going on. If we're doing that, forcing them to verbalize it like that, it just builds all these pathways in the brain, and the brain eventually, with lots of practice, just starts to process text much more deeply. That's the idea. So what tends to happen is, in comprehension, is there are 2 main sort of approaches. One is you just ask lots of questions, all right? That's what my comprehension lesson looks like. I will read a story and then I'll ask lots of questions. Why am I doing that? Well, I'm trying to get you to think more deeply about the text. So if I ask you lots of questions, you'll start thinking about the text more deeply. And that's true, but it's a very low intensity way of becoming a better. You end up understanding the passage, right? But you won't necessarily be a better comprehender. And my experience is, kids just become dependent on you. They read the text and they sit there, waiting for the questions, and that's when the thinking starts.
I remember even in high school, just looking for a keyword from the question and then just trying to copy the sentence.
Yeah.
So it's like I was kind of finding information, but I wasn't really showing understanding.
Yeah. So the point I made about his demeanour about it all is that he's actually much more engaged in the process. He's actually enjoying his reading so much more because he's processing it. I've seen kids, poorly behaved kids who sort of go to sleep in guided reading lessons who just come alive. That's because suddenly their brain's engaged and this is pretty cool. I'm getting to dig around in here.
But also when they know what's coming at them,
Yeah.
they're preparing themselves to that. They're like, oh, well, I know that he's going to say, my finger here, read.
Yeah.
You know that he's going to say, what's,
Yeah.
look at the picture, what do you think it's going to be about? Yeah.
So look, here's an example of fluency. This guy's pretty switched on with this, of course, but so this is what we're aiming for. So he attends to all the pieces of information, well and truly engaged in what's happening in the story. You can see he's living it out in his head. Natural flow in his explanation, and he can sort of tell the story. It's not halted and it's not sort of word by word unpacking. So
I'm only 11 months old, but already I know how to work a crowd. So I think that this means that there's a boy and his name is Oscar, and he's only just been born a little while ago, and he already knows how to make the crowd go, oh, he's so cute. He already knows how to work them up and make them go his way. Every morning, without exception, my mum loads me into my stroller and we head off for a walk. So I think that this means every day, so there are no different days. Every single day, his mum puts him into a special stroller because he can't walk yet, and his mum moves it around and they go off for a walk. I enjoy the attention of the hairy dogs we pass on the way, but the local cafe down the road is where I do my best work. I think that means that the dogs who are also walking past, they look over at him and they think, oh, he's so cute. And so he knows how to do these special things. But when they go down, they probably travel the same route every day. So when they go down to the cafe, where lots of people are eating, that's where he gets the most attention. Mum settles in with her coffee and the paper, while I check out the audience. I think this means that his mum just puts the stroller down, parks it there, relaxes, goes and buys a cup of coffee and drinks her coffee and looks at the paper, which leaves him free to look around at the audience and see who might enjoy him the best.
So I don't have to ask any questions. I know whether he understands that or not. And so he's managing that really well. So I'll try him on a text that's a little bit harder and see how he copes with that, and then identify perhaps some things that we can work on.
Yeah, so they're doing that every sentence they're reading, or are you're just choosing specific sentences throughout?
So there's 4 paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to cover 4 paragraphs in half an hour, 7 minutes per paragraph, and we're just going to take turns. I'll do the first one, you do the next one, you do the next one. And there's no discussion, there's no talk about it, it's just have a go at it. Try and get your brain working through this. That's after the explicit teaching, that's the independent practice. And as I say, there's not an expectation that you go home and read your novel like that, because it'll take you 5 years. But we're spending half an hour a week to try and habituate your brain to think a little bit differently. Training our brain, keep talking about training our brain to think while we're reading.
So this one I can only hear the parrot as if they're just repeating the sentence back, right?
Okay. So then the other significant way of teaching comprehension is to teach whole word strategies, and that comes next. That's we're just trying to develop this immediate in the moment comprehension, and then what happens when you get stuck? Well, then you apply a strategy. You come back into the working memory and apply a strategy. But we're trying to build up these patterns so that the brain can actually function better. Right. And the data is quite significant. I can show you data where kids just sort of go quite quickly. Right.
Where does unfamiliar vocabulary come into this?
Yep. It's called clear the roadblocks. It's part of the routine.
Okay.
Right. So I'll just very quickly go through the explicit teaching so you get an idea of what that's going to look like. So here's your piece of text today. We're going to try something different. I see there's a teacher script here. Okay, and you can just, for the this idea of the analogy of learning to ride a bike. Okay, I'll tell you about it, and that's okay, but can you show me what it looks like? And I get really excited because I want to be able to do that. And now I'm on the bike myself, and it's a little bit harder than I thought it was. So you're scaffolding, you're providing that. So this is just assume that the kids have had no experience with sharp reading before. So this is what you do. So we're going to try something new today, right? It's called sharp reading, and it's called sharp reading because we're trying to sharpen our brains and sharpen our thinking while we're reading. Okay, so you're all really good readers. I've heard you reading text. I can put just about anything in front of you and you read it really well, but sometimes we just skate over the ideas and miss out what the sentence is really saying. So our brains don't naturally want to think hard while we're reading. We're sort of like, I've learned to read, now let me go to sleep here, I can just read these words. So we have to train them to wake up and get busy. So we do this by this thing that we're going to do called unpacking the sentence. So that means we pull apart all the ideas in it and then put them together so we understand what the author's trying to say. This trains our brain to read much more carefully and to hold on to the information. So not only does it help us to understand better, but actually it makes reading a lot more fun. So there you go. So that's the explicit teaching. That's the explain that teachers can come up with. You know, I will spend an hour in the workshop going through all the theory that's behind all of that. Okay, but this is all the kids need to know. Okay, so let's have a look at the story of Tohi called Ani Armadillo. Can you read the first paragraph silently so you get an idea of what's going on? Just fold your arms when you finish. Okay, that's enough time for that. So let's read the first sentence together. Go. Ani Armadillo was distressed. Right, so I'm just going to use some thinking aloud. I'm going to tell you how I would go about doing this, because see, I'm on the bike now showing you how to unpack sentences. So first thing is I'm going to look at that sentence and I see it's just a really short sentence. It's a simple sentence. There are two ideas in it. There's Ani Armadillo and was distressed. So I've got to make sure that I unpack those so that you're convinced I know what's going on. So I'm going to have a go, and there's this little chart here, and I want you to have a look at this chart and tell me how I'm going. So a 1 is I can only hear the parrot, right? Parrot's just mimicking. Okay, and a 3 is you're really convinced that I have unpacked those two pieces, and then there's all these things in between that could make it a 2. So things like missing something out, or not enough detail, or I get something absolutely wrong, or I'm not staying with the sentence. So here we go. I think that means that Ani Armadillo was distressed. Is it a 1, 2, or 3?
1.
Was it?
You parroted it.
Yeah, I can only hear the parrot. Let me try again. I think that means there's a character in the story called Ani Armadillo. That's his name because it's in capital letters. 1, 2, or 3?
2.
Why is it a 2?
It's not missing.
All stress.
It's distressed. Okay, let me try again. I think that means that there's a character in the story called Ani Armadillo, and that's his name because he's got capital letters there. And he was getting dressed. Is it a 1, 2, or 3?
2.
Why is it a 2?
Because
Something's not
roadblock.
Got a roadblock, all right. And you would do a number of these. I'm just giving you some examples of all sorts of things. So how about this one then? I think that means that this character is called Ani Armadillo. That's his name. It's got capital letters, and he wasn't feeling very well. So I went to see a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said that he should go on holiday. 1, 2, or 3.
My psychiatrist.
1, 2, or 3?
2. I'd say 2 because you've got.
Stay with the sentence.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right, so here we go. I think that means that the character in the story called Ani Armadillo is feeling unsettled, worried, anxious in his brain. He wasn't feeling very good. 1, 2, or 3?
3.
Okay, good.
You've convinced me.
So that's just introducing, because I've got no idea what you're expecting. Like Cooper's first attempt at unpacking a sentence was just an idea grab. So you're showing them how they're going to work through all the bits and pieces, right? And then we go on to, so I would do 2 or 3 sentences. Then we go on to the guided practice. Let's just go down to, so what we do, when you're asking someone to unpack a sentence, you're asking them to do 2 things. You're asking them to understand it and then explain it. So that's that's quite challenging for the brain. It's cognitively quite challenging. So in the guided practice, we break it down into 2 bits. So first of all, we are going to work through it and we're going to talk about it and make sure we understand all the ideas and how they fit together. And then I'm going to get one of you to have a go at doing I think that means. Right? To see how you get on. So let's just have a look at this next one. I'll do this. He was alone in the dark, scary rainforest. Okay, so looking at it again, what are the pieces of information? What are the ideas that we've got to unpack? Alone, yes, so what does that mean? And then the dark, scary rainforest. Okay, and then the he, the bit at the beginning, who's the he? So let's have a go. Who's the he? So there's Ani Armadillo. Was alone, that idea, what does that mean? Nobody else is around. Okay. And in the dark, scary rainforest. What's a rainforest?
Place full of trees. It rains a lot.
Okay.
Very wet, damp.
And dark and scary?
It might have been at night time.
Yep.
There were shadows.
There's no light.
And maybe
Lots of
strange
trees,
noises.
not much light comes through. Yeah, and
Animals.
right. So we understand that.
Freaky.
There's those 3 bits. There's the he, the alone bit, you've got to unpack that, and then the dark, scary rainforest. Who would like to have a go at them? I think that means. Now, this is where you've got to sell it to them, just have a go. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong. It's like, just think of your brain as sitting out here and it's fallen asleep and it doesn't want to do anything, and you're just trying to wake it up. So trying to separate the idea of the ego and the brain. Right?
So you would break, like we just did, you would break that down, discuss, and then ask them to put it into a sentence.
So that's I. First, we have to make sure we understand the sentence. Okay, so that should give them a whole lot of scaffolding. They've got the structure of the sentence ready to go, and of course, you're going to do a wonderful job at it, but they may not necessarily. So, I agree. I think that means.
I think that means Ani Amadillo was by himself in a place, a rainforest, which is like a place with a lot of trees and animals, and it rains a lot. And that rainforest was scary because it was dark and there was no light there, and he was a little bit freaked out.
And notice what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask Beck whether she thought it's a 1, 2, or 3. I'm not going to ask you, because you'll say, oh, it's a 1, and she'll feel terrible about it. But I give you now the chance to say, oh, it was only a 2, and then that becomes all right. Okay. But what do you think, Beck? Was it a 1, 2?
Oh, it's a 3, man.
Yeah. I thought it was a 3 too.
Yeah.
I was a 3.
I thought there was only one thing I thought, perhaps a little bit more for alone. Could have been a little bit more for alone. What does that actually mean?
Like by yourself,
Yeah.
no one else around.
There it is. That's it. Okay.
So when you ask them, you could do that.
Yeah,
So what you know?
Polish up a little bit.
polish this up.
Anyone else want to have a go at that little bit? What could we do there? Okay, so now does somebody else want to have a go? Okay, April, can you have a go? Same sentence. And remember, look, it says, no, just listen, it says, I think that means, so you may just say exactly the same thing, but you may just put a slightly different tune on it. And that's really interesting when we hear what other people think.
I think that means that Ani Amadillo was all by himself, nobody else around, in it was night time, it was very dark, and there might have been shadows and strange noises which made it scary, in a rainforest, which is a place full of trees that was really damp and wet.
1, 2, or 3?
3.
1. I'm joking. Just imagine if it's a 1 miss.
Oh, we have to do one more. We have to do one more. Okay.
Is it just the first 2 sentences you're looking at?
Well, we're just
one
reading
sentence
the
at the
second sentence. We've already done the first
sentence
sentence.
at a time.
We did the first sentence in the modeling. Okay.
So yeah, I think it means Amadillo is by himself, and there's lots of trees around, but it's dark, and I mean, I was still thinking about the previous sentence, so like that maybe he was not expecting to be by himself, and maybe that's part of why it's scary. It's a surprise.
1, 2, or 3.
2 or 3, I don't know.
Okay, now if you're going to say 2, I'm going to say to you, so what do you think you could work on? What was the problem? Why is it only a 2? So I'm just trying, and you may not know, alright? You may not know initially, but it's just drawing you back to this list again. I'm trying to get them to understand that list.
Do you then give them that feedback and say, yes, this is the part that maybe like you did with Becky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I said 2 probably because I'm never sure if I did enough details.
Okay, alright. Yeah, I thought there was a little bit there. I can't remember which bit it was, but I thought it was, I just need a little bit more.
The dark.
Yeah.
Around
Okay.
the dark.
Right. So, you see, that's the guide of practice. You work through different sentences, do them as many times as you like, move on to the next one when you feel like we've really wrung it dry. Okay, and then at the end of the lesson, so what is it all working up? What are you telling me? This is the wrap up. We always have these wrap ups. What are we working on? What? Can you articulate what I just talked about? What this is all about? Can you?
I'm thinking a sentence.
Yeah.
And what the sentence is trying to say or tell you. So.
Yeah. Good. Anyone else got a bit more? What are we working on?
We're working on I'm getting a good picture in our head and using vocabulary that matches the picture in our head,
And so why are we doing this?
so that we have a really good understanding of what we're reading, and we can
To be attentive to all the details.
Yeah. Thank you for being to that. they said?
To enjoy our book.
Oh, right, yeah.
Enjoy.
Okay, so now I'm going to give you feedback. So this is our first little lesson, and we just had a bit of a go. Do you think you're getting better at this just from our first lesson?
Damn straight.
Not
I'm that
yet.
child, sorry.
That's right. When we started off, you were just one. And look, you got a 2 towards the end. You got
The
a 3.
kids do. The kids will be like,
Yeah, well, it's so you've really got to, especially the further up the school you get, the less reluctant they are to sort of make those comments. On
yeah,
you.
I'm thinking it's the same as
Yeah.
Where I'm thinking the little
Yes.
Great to
So you latch on to the things that they've done well. Anything that they've done. I really like the way you unpack scary. That was great. Okay. And then next lesson, well, maybe we'll just do another little, the next paragraph and do the same sort of thing. Or maybe we'll go on to the independent practice.
You need to have a break. Don't you think you need a bit of a stretch and a walk around?
Oh, I don't go and say Nat.
Therefore, been over to
Oh,
room
we might just
14
have
and come back.
We've done it. We've done it together anyway. I didn't go and see Nat during break time.
This has been up.
I think this is enough.
This is helpful.
Yeah.